Alright guys, so this is the last Coriolanus video for today. And I imagine next time I make a series of videos, we will be able to finish Coriolanus and start moving on and thinking about Romeo and Juliet, which I will get to later. So the only thing left to talk about in Coriolanus is the final scene. Not the final scene, I'm sorry, is the scene in which the three women confront Coriolanus at the end, where they plead for him not to destroy Rome and are successful, even though it destroys Coriolanus in the process. So let's take a look at that bit. So Coriolanus says, he sees enter Virgilia, Volumina, Valeria, young Marcius with attendants. And I talked about this in class briefly. Valeria just seems like Volumina's friend, and I have no idea why it's important that she's here, except for the fact that in Macbeth it is three women who destroy the soldier. It's the witches. And actually, in the movie version we saw, it's three witches and a little kid witch. And here you have the same thing here. It's three women and a child who come to destroy our sort of soldier, who's very good at being a soldier, like Macbeth, but very bad at being anything other than a soldier, also like Macbeth. So he sees them and he says, "Oh, my wife comes foremost, and then the honored mold wherein this trunk was framed." That's his mother. She's the mold that made him. And in her hand, the grandchild of her blood. But out affection. He's trying to get rid of. He has so many emotions. He loves these people, but he has to get rid of it. He has to be hard. He says, "But out affection, all bond and privilege of nature. Break. Let it be virtuous to be obstinate." And then Virgilia sort of curtsies, kind of a little bow. But what is that curtsy worth? Oh, these dove's eyes, which can make gods forsworn. I melt, and I'm not stronger earth than others, right? So he feels his wife comes in, and he's trying to be tough in front of them, because, of course, his whole thing is, I don't give a shit about anybody. I've come to destroy the city. And then when these women show up, he loves them, and he feels bad for them, and he doesn't want to be there, but if he destroys the city, they're going to get destroyed too. And so he feels bad about it, and he tries to be strong, but he has trouble. He says, "I melt and am not of stronger earth than others." He's just like anybody else who loves their mom. And then his mother bows. "My mother bows, as if Olympus to a molehill should in supplication nod. And my young boy hath an aspect of intercession with great nature cries, deny not." This moment here where his mother bows to him is it was a big thing in sort of ancient cultures, to sort of the child bowing to the parent to receive a blessing. It's a big moment that comes in, especially in Shakespeare. It's all over Shakespeare, where the father kind of gives power to the son. If you're familiar with your Bible, Jacob and Esau, there's a similar kind of thing with the birthright and the father blessing the children. By the way, the word blessing in Hebrew literally means more life, extra life. And so what's happening when the parents bless the children, is they're kind of giving them more life, is the sort of metaphorical idea. You're blessing them with sort of more intense or longer or better life, passing from the older generation to the younger, which is sort of is seen as the natural progression of how things are supposed to go. But when Coriolanus' mother bows to him, this is like a huge reversal. This is bonkers that she would ever do this, because the whole point of all the bowing and whatever is for parents to sort of give power to children, but the child is supposed to bow to receive it. And here the parent is bowing, which is just, and again, what are the parents asking for? More life, because he's about to destroy their city. So this is a terrible reversal of kind of the ordinary procedure and things. The topsy-turvy nature of this. It's just like everything's backwards, and Coriolanus freaks out a little bit. And then he sees his child there with him. And then he says, "Let Volsci's plow Rome and harrow Italy," right? Let these guys destroy everything. "I'll never be such a gosling to obey instinct." So he says, he says like gosling, like as a little duck, like weak, a little goose. He doesn't want to be like that. He doesn't want to be weak and loving to these people that he's supposed to love. He has to be tough. And he says this is an interesting line. He wants to be tough, as if a man were author of himself and knew no other kin. He wants to be tough, as if a man were author of himself and knew no other kin. It's a neat line, because Coriolanus imagines you can't be tough when you come from a mom and you got a wife and you got a kid, because those people have emotional power over you. But it's interesting that when Coriolanus, he imagines being strong, he imagines being tough. He refuses to answer any names, and they describe him like a dragon, and he's this sort of monster creature. But it's interesting that in Coriolanus's fantasy life, when he's in this angry state and he's ready to get revenge, his biggest fantasy is as if a man were author of himself, meaning as if a person could create themselves. But of course, you can't create you. Your mom creates you. In Coriolanus, though, his fantasy life involves imagining that he doesn't have a mom. That's, he believes, where real power comes from, is if you didn't have a mother, if you were self-created. Because then you'd be in full control over yourself. Whereas right now, this woman that made him has a claim on him. She can ask him to do stuff, and she's his mom. And you feel like when your mom asks you to do something, you feel like you ought to do it. And then she'll guilt trip you and make you feel bad, which is exactly what Volumina is going to do here. And she's going to win. But it's fascinating to me that Coriolanus's sort of psychological fantasy life involves this kind of wish that he could be author of himself, that he could be sort of his own person, his own kind of power, and it really speaks a lot to like what's going on in his head. Shakespeare's very good at creating these characters that have a kind of consistent psychology to them. Right, but they identify my lord and husband, and he says, these are not the same eyes I wore in Rome, like I'm a different person. And then Coriolanus says, like a dull actor now, I have forgot my part and am out, even to a full disgrace. He feels like an actor on a stage who's forgotten his lines, because he doesn't know what to say. Best of my flesh, forgive my tyranny, but do not say forgive the Romans. Oh, a kiss, as long as my exile is sweet as my revenge. But he won't. His wife is basically asking him to, his wife has come to him and she kisses him, and he's not making him feel better. He says the kiss is nice, it's as sweet as the revenge he's going to get. Now by my jealous queen of heaven, that kiss I carried from thee, dear, and my true lip hath virgined it ever since, you gods. I prate, and the most noble mother of the world would leave unsaluted, sink my knee in the earth, of that deep duty more impression shows than that of common sons. So he kind of tries to kneel in front of his mother because he's trying to put things back the way they're supposed to be, but of course that's gone. His mother says, stand up blessed, right? She gives him the traditional blessing. Whilst with no softer cushion than the flint, I kneel before thee, and unproperly show duty, as mistaken all this while between the child and parent, and she kneels. And this is a humiliating moment. Like, he knelt before his mother, which is right and proper, and then when he stands up, she gets down on the ground and kneels in front of him, with her, hands on the ground. And this is like this is his mother. I mean, first of all, it's inappropriate for a parent to kneel before a child in any case, but this parent, I mean, Volumina is a total nightmare, and she's so strong. It must be really, it's spinning him for a loop that she's kneeling in front of him. And she's the one begging. He's the one that usually begs her for stuff. Oh, stand up, blessed. And all right, and he says, "What's this? Your knees to me, your corrected son? Then let these pebbles on the beach fill up the stars." Right? Again, you see that right there. Let the pebbles on the hungry beach fill up the stars. It's the idea here, the image is of reversal, that all the little rocks on the beach are going to go where the stars are, and the stars are going to go where the rocks on the beach are. Everything's flipped, the universe is flipped upside down if you're bowing to me. Then let the mutinous wind strike the plowed cedars against the fiery sun, murdering impossibility to make what cannot be slight work. And Volumina's response is, thou art my warrior, I hope to frame thee. Right, you're my warrior. She kneels to him, which is like, saying, he's the more powerful person, but psychologically she immediately turns on him and says, you're my warrior. He's Rome's warrior, but she says, you're my warrior because I hoped to frame thee, meaning I helped build you, and you are fundamentally mine. And this is how she gets her claws into him to get him to change, because she says that you're fundamentally mine, and I can control you. Even though she does this thing where she gets down and she kneels before him, that's really just kind of a psychological trick to spin him out. She has a larger plan, and she wins, but it comes at a tremendous cost. So we'll pick that cost up next time. Thanks for joining me for this series of videos on Coriolanus. Please comment below and be thinking about these characters and where they remind you of pop culture. And start thinking about some of your papers, because you can certainly read about action movies where the men seem more in love with each other, even if they're enemies. And you can talk about powerful moms and sort of a character like Volumina. So I will see you guys next time, where we will wrap up Coriolanus in the next video. I